DK.
Donkey.
Donkey
Oh,
Kong.
they didn't get to that till the 64, bro.
Oh, I'm aware.
Getting ahead of yourself.
I'm aware. This is a cultural icon. It's like
Yes,
the
sir.
zenith, the peak of Donkey Kong experience.
Mm.
DK. DK. It's Donkey Kong.
Yo, welcome to
That's
Low Five Gaming, everybody. A podcast that I do with my co-host and brother Luke. Backlog book club style, if you will. Pick a game a month,
backlog book
try and beat that
club.
shit. And if whether this is your
Hell
first
yeah.
episode or your what are we on, man? Like pushing 30.
Damn. Yeah, I am 31.
Yeah.
You
Happy
talking about the
birthday, man.
podcasts? Or, oh, yeah, yeah.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday to
Thanks.
me today as of the dropping of this recording.
Oh, I was like, shoot, I'm usually pretty good about this. It ain't your birthday.
yeah, yeah, we're recording before, but if you're listening on the 15th, hit that Discord with some birthday love. You missed Luke, so you're just not good people.
Unsanctioned sponsored birthday princess Alex.
uh, good to see you. Good to have you here. Good to have everybody listening. Welcome. We got Donkey Kong Country today.
Yeah, DK. It's Donkey Kong. I'm gonna do that like 40 times.
I can dig it, dude. Have you ever played the 64
Yeah.
game? Played Donkey Kong 64?
Yeah, dude, it was the first Donkey Kong I ever played.
Oh, right on. Cool, cool,
Didn't
cool.
get like super far, but we'll get there.
Well, in that case, that's a good segue into what's your history with this game, man? Donkey Kong Country.
None.
Word.
No, I mean so Donkey Kong is a genre or not genre, but Donkey Kong is IP or
Mm-hmm.
you know, what's the word I'm looking for here?
It's a franchise, the Donkey
Yeah,
Kong
just
franchise,
the
I
just
suppose.
the Donkey Kong universe, 64 was a huge hit and I was very young. We had a 64, so DK64 would definitely be my entry, and then Smash Bros. He's one of the pillar characters and he's always been a
True.
fun play. So really Donkey Kong Countries and the 2D platformers, I didn't know that the franchise came from those roots at all until the Switch. When it first came out, those like first 2 years, like there was some bangers, obviously, but there was some dry spells too before like a ton of indie games are on there and like everything else that we now know on the Switch. So I
Mhm.
picked up Tropical Freeze and
Good ass game.
dude, yeah, I'll definitely get into that at different points here when we're talking about, the things I struggled with in this game and like modernization. But like I remember really loving Tropical Freeze, but it's pretty hard for me. And it's
Yeah,
probably because I didn't have any Donkey Kong Country history.
sure.
But I thought it was really cool. And then, other than those two things, or three things, I should say, most of my Donkey Kong information comes from Video Game Donkey, which I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but he's a huge fan, so it's fun. How about
Sure.
yourself?
Yeah, so we had a Sega Genesis in the house. It was a little latter end of that console's like official life. But we didn't
Right. No
have the
SNES.
yeah, didn't
No
have the SNES,
SNES.
didn't have the Super Nintendo. And I played this game at the homies' houses that had it, but I feel like I skewed towards Mario, man. I think when it came to platformers, it's funny. This game in particular, like I think I'm well versed with like the first maybe 10 levels, but I never really got further than that. Like we never really played much further than that, even though there's some interesting things with Donkey Kong Country. The incorporation of co-op's pretty cool, but I was just playing at an age that I think I was too young to be good.
Yeah, it's hard.
you
We're
know
dancing around the fact that it's kind of harder and definitely
it
a more
is
mature platformer. Not that it's delving into dark themes of depression like Celeste or anything, but like
sure.
it's a lot darker in a lot of different ways and more difficult than Mario. So I can see why as a little kid, because this is an older game in general. I don't think a lot of people my age are super familiar with Donkey. That's a broad generalization, obviously, but I don't remember anyone having a SNES growing up in my era. Never saw or heard of this game. The buddy James had it at his daycare for a little bit, I think, and he's the only one I know that grew up with it at all.
Yeah, dude, it's fun though. Like the funny thing about this game is even though I don't have like a very deep history with it, you'll run into folks that do, right? People love this fucking game. And it's warranted. Like I see where the love is. I think that, coming at it at this time in 2023, this game came out in 1994, I want to say. November of
Oh, okay.
1994, right? Published by Nintendo. Interestingly, it was developed by Rare. And Rare started making video games for the original Nintendo. So like Battletoads was one of their first games.
Sick.
hmm And then people know them for like GoldenEye, obviously on the 64, Banjo Kazooie, etc. But this was a big deal for Rare because they proved to Nintendo they backwards like built the Nintendo platform to like prove that they understood the system, right? And that kind of caught the eye of Nintendo,
Sure.
and then they made them comfortable with them putting together games for them, right? When the SNES came around, previous Donkey Kong games. So this is the platformer, but you've got your history of like the Donkey Kong arcade, right? So where you're
Yeah, I
Mario,
mean, he's as old, if not older than Mario, right? When
yeah,
Mario was still
totally.
Jumpman, he's
Mhm.
fighting Donkey Kong.
Yeah, and fun fact, dude,
Yeah.
the Cranky Kong, the old Kong that you run into in Donkey Kong Country is
Who just gives you
actually
shitty advice.
yeah. But he is Donkey Kong in the original Donkey Kong game. Like that's the lore there, right?
Oh, that's hilarious.
So that's kind of fun.
I didn't get
But
that.
so
That's funny.
Rare proved to Nintendo that they could make these games and they were good at it. So Nintendo gave them the reins on this one, to take their IP and run with it. I think Miyamoto was working on Yoshi's Island, I want to say, during the time of this
Okay.
development. So he previously was the only person who had, or it was kind of his Donkey Kong was his baby. So it was a big deal. It was a big deal for Rare to get this one. I think they nailed it. They knocked it out of the park. Obviously, a lot of people love it. It's funny. We recently got together in person not too long ago, and we were talking to some homies and told them we are going to be working on this podcast. We have been playing this game. Our buddy Eric, in particular, was like he got super
Fully dox
excited,
this
right?
man.
Yeah, right. All this editing, but our buddy Eric got super excited, right, and was like, "Oh, that's one of my favorite games of all time." And then he also led into the soundtrack, the
Oh
OST,
yeah.
and that is a common theme. So the reason we don't have like strong nostalgia love for this game, I definitely played it, but it's not in my like gaming zeitgeist. That said,
No.
it is in a lot of folks, and it's something that has been requested. This game in particular has been requested quite a few times on our Discord and then also on social media. So you're welcome. You're welcome, people. We're doing it. We did
We're
it.
doing it.
But
No
then,
rewinds. 100%ed it.
yeah, and I played on the Switch for this, dude.
Oh dude.
I started another
So
save
much.
file on the game proper, on the cart proper, but I'm not nearly as far because it's a tough game.
Oh yeah, and in talking to Eric, because I once again I didn't grow up with anybody who has like extensive knowledge of this game, and I was like, it's just so hard, and I don't know, nor do I have the patience to grind out extra levels. He goes, oh well, and then he's like, you learn all little places where you get those little animal shapes, then you
Mm-hmm.
collect three of them, and you get to do the thing where you get like 10+ lives, and it kind of took me back to that mindset of when I was younger playing these games, where it was just like so normal for you to like do these. We almost become instantly impatient, right? Like we
Right.
can't beat a level and we're like, this is annoying. The checkpoints, there's one checkpoint per level. It's like pretty brutal. And some of these levels just get just nails, just so
Mm-hmm.
ridiculously hard.
Tough platforming.
And the timing of things, and it's just like if I didn't have the rewind, I'd be insane trying to get through this. And it's like that's just kind of how games were, and that's just kind of how we approached them. You took your time, you goofed around in these levels, you weren't trying to like rip through them really fast and see everything. You were just, if you were old enough to be playing this game to beat it, you just found those different little strategies, the way to cheese it. And it's not really cheesing it because it's kind of, I feel like, how it's developed, because you would never beat this game if you weren't amassing lives this way.
There is a fun little lesser known fact that so there's a 50 lives cheat code.
No
So you
shit.
enter
50 lives would be like destroyed so quickly though. Like
yeah,
I
that's
need
there's
you to know,
true.
like that's the tip of the iceberg of what I'd need to finish some of these later levels.
Yeah, so you have to enter the code barrel BARRAL on the game's file select screen, and it'll grant you 50 lives. But I'm not even sure where you'd punch that in. Now that I think about
I'd
that.
rather not know. It gives us back to the playground myths.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
better, dude. Rare candy. What's up?
Right. Yeah, for sure.
TM monster. That thing was real though, so I don't
It's
know.
funny. I do know, like, so this game's riddled with secrets too. Like, so that's a good point. I know where a couple are in the first few levels, but as I played through this, uh, like Cranky Kong at the end gives you some shit because, like, I think percentage wise, for because there's a ton of secret rooms, secret items
Yeah.
that you can pick up. And do my percentage, like, I completed the game, I wrote the credits, but it's like 40% or something like that.
Yeah, I don't even see that, but mine would be ridiculously low.
Yeah, he was like,
You
there's a
feel
lot more
so
to
smart in
explore.
the beginning when you're nailing them. You're like, I'm gonna get all of
Mhm.
these. I'm gonna get all the Kongs, like collecting the letters throughout the level.
Good.
You're like, I'm gonna get all of those. Nope.
Yep. Dude, those things that you're talking about. So there's the Kong letters to collect throughout the level. There's also those so you have buddies in this, right? So you play as Donkey Kong, but it
This is the
introduced
birth
Diddy
of,
Kong.
yeah, it's the birth of Diddy Kong, who I've
Yeah.
always loved more. Maybe it's a little
Dude, he's
brother
cool.
thing.
I don't know. I like
It's
him
probably
too. Who did you play with? Who did you play with most throughout
uh
your playthrough?
Diddy Kong easily. He is
Yeah,
weaker, which I thought was
he is.
interesting. I thought they were
Mhm.
identical for a long time. He's weaker, but he has a
Yep.
higher jump and he's faster. I thought
Faster.
that was really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't until the later levels that I started to favor Donkey Kong more because he could take on because he would kill the enemies as opposed to DK just bouncing off them. I mean, Diddy Kong just bouncing off.
Yeah. If you do that roll attack, which like
That thing's a little
really
crazy.
embarrassing is how long it took me to know that if you hold the roll attack, it just
Yeah,
runs into a sprint.
yeah.
That changed some things for a while. That
Oh
was
man,
brutally embarrassing. But he can like defeat some of them with that roll attack. It's just, now you're getting into finicky timing and you're more likely to botch it.
sure, sure. Yeah, no, it's funny. So when I was doing some research for this, for this game, I also found out, which I thought was a fun little fact too. I mentioned, with the development history of Miyamoto, apparently he was a little skeptical of of this game when they were creating it, right? Because he at first thought the gameplay was a bit mediocre, and part of Shigeru Miyamoto's full like the way that he approaches video games is this idea that the gameplay itself should be really polished and smooth, and graphics are kind of a little side part of that, which is an
Yeah,
interesting thing when you look at Nintendo as a full, right? Because that's one of their main focuses is making sure that the gameplay is super polished and graphics are kind of like second tier. Like look at your PS5s and your Xbox, and
sure.
then you got your Switch, not a big deal, but the games that they put on Switch, phenomenal. So it's interesting that this has been a mindset of his for a long time. So this is a game that came out in 94 for the Super Nintendo. But at the time, dude, anytime you're playing one of these like throwback games or retro game, it's kind of funny, dude, because like the graphics are cool, dude. They are cool. But at the time,
Well,
they were fucking lit.
yeah, and the backgrounds I believe are like hand drawn type shit,
Mhm.
right? Like they're not
I think so. It's got that
pixels
cool
like
parallax thing going. Is it parallax or not? But it's definitely the colors are cool, man. And there's a couple levels where it's like it'll be dusk, so you've got some really beautiful oranges and reds going on in the background, but it's
sure.
also darker, so it's a little harder to see. And you're like, ah, shit. But
Dude,
but the big thing about this, what they did is they did these pre-rendered 3D graphics to create all the characters, and then they turned those into sprites. So that's you've got like a lot more detail than your I guess you're like a Super Mario World or something like that. Like those, I think Super Mario World looks great, but like this game,
looks
it,
gorgeous in a different way.
it does, yeah. And it
Like it
was like,
feels silly to say this one looked realistic,
mm-hmm.
but it's that same way that like Mortal Kombat was, right? Where it's that
Right,
same process you talked about, where it's like the sprites versus like what you're seeing, the super colorful world of like Mario.
right.
Yeah,
So like Miyamoto's skepticism, though, it's rooted in this fear that the dazzle and the state of these graphics would overshadow shortcomings in the platforming, which I think is interesting. And that was an interesting thing to read because this game is lauded for being a groundbreaking platformer. Like Rare really did a pretty good job. But I do see what he's talking. When you like look at a game that's as tight as Mario, it's interesting to know that he was like
yeah.
a little skeptical of DK.
I'd say like it's a well, one, like there's really no reason to treat Mario and DK separately when it comes to like the discussion. They're two of Nintendo's babies, but also like they are both platformers, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have their own styles and flavors, which I think is really cool. But Mario, like frame to frame, I feel like each inch of the screen, I have a lot of trust in the game in
Sure.
that way. Donkey Kong, I feel like is more creative. Maybe isn't fair to Mario, but maybe it's just so much different. It's fun. It's a fun mix up, but I don't have that same faith of like I'm not gonna slip
Dude, there's a couple
or
jumps where I had some sloppy jumps and I would still kill like an enemy and I would be like, oh good. But
yeah.
there's other times where they get you and it's like, what?
Or like even when we were playing X-Men, it's like I don't know if they're really gonna like land on this corner or like I don't know. It's just weird to explain, but on Mario, it's like I know each inch he's gonna land on. Not that I'm any good at it, but
Sure.
it's a tighter feeling where DK is a little looser, more variety, and just what would you consider like the DK flavor? It's a good little transition here. Like what?
Hmm.
Because it is a different experience entirely. I
Yeah,
like how you can tag team between the two of them. I think that's really
I
cool.
think that is cool. There's some that definitely adds like a stronger layer of the co-op. So we didn't play co-op for this, but you can,
That
right?
sounds horrifying. Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound fun. That just sounds horrifying.
Shout out to the homie Keith who does Main Quest Pod, but we recently it'll be airing soon, but we did X-Men 2 the Clone Wars, talk about that game with him. So
Yeah.
that's something that you and I did play co-op for that. Like that was tough, dude. It's tough to stay on screen and like go in the same
Yeah.
places. And I could see that being a little bit of the same here with Donkey Kong. I think that, per your question though, like what is it's like what brings it apart? I think obviously those graphics like were a big deal. I think I think the playfulness of what you're able to do with Diddy, but then also the other buddies, like the which
The
Mario gets some power
Barracuda.
ups, but and he's got Yoshi, I suppose. But yeah, you've
Yeah.
got your what is it? It's the frog, the rhino.
Ostrich, I want to say.
Yeah, there's an ostrich. I
The
guess that frog's
Barracuda, dude.
apparently super OP'd. I didn't really notice, but that's what I was reading about, which is interesting.
I mean, I guess I fuck it up anyway. So
Yeah, I really like the rhino.
yeah.
But it's similar. So I mean, so that's not really making it different though. What would it be? There's the music in this system. That's something we should jump into too. Is like we did mention the importance of it, but
Yeah,
that's the
the
big
music's
deal about this
amazing.
game.
It's very jazz, very Afrobeat jazz kind of influence, also kind of Caribbean. Very cool tropical influences there. But Mario also like all-time slappers when it comes to soundtracks too. So, but
Sure.
it's like once again, it almost feels less video gamey,
Hmm.
just like how the graphics are a little more quote unquote realistic. We're talking 1994 here. The music definitely is more like something you would hear out and about, almost like not artistic because I think the Mario stuff is too, but that's like very gamey soundtracky where this is just like this jazz that's like giving you different emotions and like the water drips in the caves and like
Right.
the super funky underwater theme that's like uber famous for being like way too good for a video game.
The composer here is David Wise. That's his name, right? And another fun fact, dude, David Wise, he was a developer for Rare. They had someone else set to be the composer, but for whatever reason they couldn't come in, and they subbed in David to like do some of the work, and then it just ended up being so good. They're like, all right, cool, let's just rock with it.
Sure.
But David Wise, dude, and it's funny when I was like, poking like throughout the month, like learning more about this game and everything. Like I knew that people love this underwater tune, which we'll play a little bit of, but
Yeah.
there are YouTube videos that just play it on loop for like 6 hours because it is a true vibe, dude. Like people love this.
Steverson said that his girlfriend caught like a 20-minute rant of what do you know about the Donkey Kong Country underground theme, and it had nothing to do with our recent conversation, but he had recently argued of its merits. So like it lives with the people it lives with, my guy.
Dude, totally.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
think
no,
that's, I think it's a timepiece too, though. Like, because the thing is, I'm playing this game, and it's not one that I would necessarily. I would we'll give our full recommendations later, but like I do think that whereas, and I said it earlier, like I skew Mario, man, and I think it is something to do with that tightness, something to do about that world. To go back to your question about what makes us different is I think it's very interesting how this game elevated the DK story, like this whole like this world that
yeah.
Donkey Kong lives in, and then going on like to the different Donkey Kong games or whatever. Like the story's like not very deep. Like
Well, that's a
he's got to get
good
back
way
to
to put it though,
plans.
that they expanded, like they created their whole world for it. And like
Mhm.
Donkey Kong's place in Mario Canon's like kind of crazy because like in the Mario movie, he's like a titular character, right? Like
Right.
he and the Kongs. So you're kind of like, this is interesting because they've abandoned the games. Like the no Switch
Mhm.
game has Donkey Kong. I mean, the sports ones and stuff, but like the only game they have on the Switch that is Donkey Kong, to my knowledge of extensive research, is Tropical Freeze, which is a Wii U port.
Yeah, that's true.
So like interestingly, like it's been used for innovation. Like although Donkey Kong 64 is kind of innovative, it's also just like Banjo Kazooie slash games of its time, made by the same people.
Hmm.
But like they also like for the GameCube, they had like a literal bongo set, I believe, that you set up. Maybe that was for the Wii. I could be corrected here, but you had like a literal bongo that you did the
Yeah,
game
totally.
with, the platforming. So like, but after that type of stuff, like I'm kind of shocked of all the games that got a glow up in the Switch era, like Donkey Kong, although being held to this high status with their world and everything, the world building and fan popularity of Smash and all that
Hmm.
on the same. So it's one of the biggest IP Nintendo has, and yet no new game. It's kind of weird.
It is weird. Nintendo be weird like that. It's probably just doesn't have the numbers they need.
I
So like
I
this game
guess,
though,
but
over 9 million copies sold, making it the third best selling SNES game of all time.
so yeah, it just kind of goes back to something they just didn't pick up, even though it had critical acclaim and like
I
Like
wonder if it's
I
a, I wonder if it's because it was a rare property. I mean, it was a Nintendo property, but made by Rare. I wonder if that's part of it.
Yeah. Well, Tropical Freeze was fire, but I think nothing
Did
on the
Rare,
Wii U
did Rare
really
have
got
anything to
its.
do with Tropical Freeze? I'm not
I'll
sure.
get my crack team on it.
I will say this. I brought up David Wise earlier. They did bring back David Wise to work on Tropical Freeze, which is kind of cool.
Did he do the music for a bunch of their games? Like, did they run? Because I know that Donkey Kong, like Country 2 and 3
I
and
believe he did. I believe he did
future games, like,
because this
continue
game
to have
spun off.
slappers
Yep, this game
for
spun off to
soundtrack.
a little trilogy on the Super
Yeah.
Nintendo. And it's also worth mentioning too that this game was ported to Game Boy, which is yeah, you know me, I love my Game Boy, but it's
Sure
like
thing.
it's a hilarious port, dude. Game Boy Advance. They put it out on the Wii's Virtual Console, and then it's also on the SNES Classic Mini, and it's now on the NSO. But those ports for the Game Boy Color, dude, the Game Boy Advance port, pretty good, pretty close to the Super Nintendo version, which is the case with a lot of those ports for Game Boy Advance. They had enough power to run those. But the Game Boy Color, dude, they took this game and they crunched it down in the most ridiculous. It's
Wow,
funny.
to stretch my
It's
hands, that would be no
it's
asking on a prayer there.
yeah, it's funny, dude. It's basically like the epitome of Mom, I want to play Donkey Kong Country. She's like, we got that shit at home, you know.
Oof.
But it's fun. I still love to play it, but it's another one that I pop in. And I have not played that to the end because it's tough, man. But
It
they really
sounds even
distilled it
worse.
down to for Game Boy.
Yeah, it sounds even worse. I'm looking at in your extensive research. Alex went crazy on the outline today, dude. My man's been hacking away. I like it. But you got the how long to beat. The main and sides is 4 hours. Completionist is 6. And it's
Right.
like, well,
So that's the thing, dude. I always love going to How Long to Beat to look at these times.
yeah.
I've noticed that for the duration of this pod, I always try and pay attention to how long I'm taking on games, and I'm always averaging a couple more hours than what the internet's saying it's going to take me
Well,
to
what's
beat.
funny is like I would agree with these times with a rewind. Like if you know
Do it.
exactly what you're doing and can finish each level within reason, sure.
Yeah,
But
no,
like
totally. That's just it. You can't
if
approach
I
this game
if I
like
bought this in
fresh.
1994, we're talking before I beat this thing, 50 hours minimum.
Right?
All
And
that
we were
grinding, learning, memorizing, like, oh my God.
and we are speaking a little bit to this off air, but because we're comparing because both of us have a little bit of experience with Tropical Freeze. They changed the mod. Like games are just not. Of course that there's going to be indie developers and there's going to be people making games like this still. But I do feel as a whole, like we just don't get platformers that are this grueling anymore, unless like you're doing like a fucking what's that game we played the Blood Moon.
Yeah, but that's like a
Bloodstain.
new old game.
But even Bloodstained has they've have certain elements that have made it more approachable for today's gamer, right? So
Yeah.
like this, like dude, I think you brought it up to me because or maybe it was in our Discord. But the thing is, and you were speaking to this earlier, if you start to learn the secrets and stuff, you can build up your one ups. Catch those balloons. You'll see a balloon floating around. All the one ups. Mario, you got the mushrooms. Donkey Kong, it's a balloon. It's a red balloon, right? You can start to bank those, and you're also collecting bananas throughout. You get just like the coins in Mario. You collect 100,
Sure.
100 bananas, you get a one up. But so we both played this on the NSO, and because of that, we were able to use cheese the rewind a little bit when things got tough, right? I was looking at my life counter, and I think I finished the game with like roughly 16 lives because I wasn't hunting for all that stuff. So if you're not paying attention and trying to catch that, dude, it's going to be a tough game. Could you imagine getting towards the latter part of this game and getting a game over? Fuck me.
Dude, even with the rewind, there's a level where you hit barrels to turn the lights on and off, and for some
Mhm.
reason they turn off on their own anyway. And it's the most like with
Yeah.
rewind, it was intensely annoying. So like memorizing and executing. So the thing with like I can't get into their mindset. I know there's the whole arcade thing and like games stem from the arcades. So like there's this one argument of okay, this mindset of you either want this game to be arcade profitable where you have to keep feeding it quarters, or you want the game to be hard enough to beat where kids have to keep hitting the rentals.
Mm.
So there's that mindset, but I don't think that should apply here. But then there's the technology mindset of like, did they have the power to have like all these checkpoints within a level that you could like instantly be dropped in? And that's the thing I don't know. And it could just be the fact that, with pioneering, you're adapting to one mindset and it takes you a time to evolve and think past new ideas. But when you play like Tropical Freeze, the reason that I would suggest that to anyone so much more than this game if unless you just really want to enjoy like some retro experiences. Like the save points are so much more forgiving because the rewind ruins it.
Yep.
Rewind ruins this game. Like I will shamelessly do it. I want to see this whole game and it's grueling.
Mhm.
But there's platforming sections where you're just rewinding a few seconds, cheesing it,
Right.
and just ripping through, and it doesn't feel good. And you're like, what am I doing? I might as well be watching a YouTube playthrough of someone doing this well. Like this isn't fun.
Yeah.
Whereas in Tropical Freeze, the save points are fair enough, in my opinion. It's still grueling, right? Still just as hard. You're still hitting all these weird combos, but like you get that instant start over at like a nice checkpoint, and it's like you're going on a nice little run and you're like memorizing the route.
Well, that's just it. So like with a lot of
They
these
had to do that
platforming
back in the
games,
days. Yeah.
right? So you're you are putting in the time to learn each level to earn up to you're taking the time to, and that's just it. When we approach this game, especially with rewind, it's easy to just to hold down Y and sprint through, right? And it's like kind of lets me live out my speedrunner fantasies in a
Yeah.
sense. but but then even if I find myself hitting rewind a whole bunch, I'm like, what am I doing here? Like slow
Yeah.
down. Like what how would I be approaching this game without? And then you realize you're like, okay, I'm waiting for the time on these barrels to match up or whatever. I'm trying to time the spin exactly. And and then that's like, so it's interesting. I mentioned that I'm about halfway through this game, a little less than halfway through without rewind on the cart proper. It's a different experience, man. Like I enjoyed being able to bust through this game and the accessibility that rewind gave me to do that, to see the whole thing. Because I would still be grinding. And and I think that's just it. Like I think that you see a 4 hour beat time on how long to beat. But
Yeah.
this game, like you're putting like it could take someone like a kid who got it back in 1994. Like they might be playing this game for a full year before they beat it because they're getting good, dude.
Yeah. And that was just like from the modern approach, it's more just like Tropical Freeze is and Celeste is a nice out of Nintendo comparison or parallel. We beat that game,
Right.
and the death count, instead of it being this thing where you're gonna run out of lives, it's more of just
Mhm.
this thing of like lols. I died 400 times,
Right.
like where
Right.
that level took me. Like, and I like that approach way better. In smaller chunks, it's way more attainable for you to get through and like like master these sections. And like in Donkey Kong, you have one checkpoint. Sometimes the smallest thing. I love how like the developers tried to fuck you over so much. There's like the little alligator dudes later in the game
Oh
that
man, they're tough.
jump as well. There's one and you go to the exit and at the last second before you're there, it populates one of those guys and he jumps and you're just like, oh my God. Like if I didn't have rewind, I would have thrown a controller.
Sure.
Like, I've
Sure.
never been a throw a controller kid, but I would have thrown a controller.
We obviously have our gripes with it just being a bit dated game and tough. It's a tough platformer, but for the time when it came out, I mentioned it's one of the third best selling SNES game of all time. So I don't know. I could be wrong about that. I just read that on the internet. If you go right now to and look up what are the best Super Nintendo games of all time, like this game will be on everyone's list.
Oh, it's a
Like,
cultural force, no doubt.
right.
It's awesome. I get grumpy when I'm fucking shit up, and I would like some checkpoints. That's all.
I think it's interesting, man. Like it did like we had the original Donkey Kong, but then this game, because of its success and how much people do love it, it had all those spin-offs. So you've got the trilogy, but it also like they made comic books about this shit. They made an animated television series. Like this really blew Donkey Kong up. You're kind of talking to how DK fell off a little bit for Nintendo, but this shit blew him up. We already mentioned a little bit about collectibles too. Not only was this a big cultural impact, I also think that it had a huge impact in platformers themselves, and especially
Yeah,
in the sense of like we were talking earlier about the collecting the Kong items, the different gold items for the different buddy characters that you get throughout. But
yeah.
this is one of the first games that like that's another thing that sets it apart from Mario. Whereas Mario, you're kind of running through, you got the power up, so
Just
that's kind of
lives and
similar,
coins. Yeah,
right? But collectibles in this, so like that's like now almost every platformer's got some sort of collectible. And this game
yeah,
introduced
yeah. And they're God. When you actually stumble upon them, it feels good. You ever
good
stumble
as
upon a
dope.
room and you do some little mini game within the room and you get one life and you're like, the
Yeah,
fuck?
yeah. But you need that. But that's how you feel about it. Playing the rewind,
Right.
if you're trying to collect those lives to make it further in the game, you'd be stoked about that. It'd be nice to get more.
Yeah. That's just, yeah. I mean, five minimum. This game's hard as shit.
Dude,
The enemies are really cool.
the iconic one up life that's a really easy one to get is that first level. If you go back up to the house, do you get that one when you start the game?
I think so.
Yeah, so like the house, you come out of DK's house after the whole like banana heist thing. If you go back up the cave, yeah, there's a one up in his home, which I think they did that in. I'm pretty sure they added that little Easter egg into DK64 as well.
Oh, that's
But I
funny.
might have just made that up. I don't know.
It sounds good to me. Just confidence. Yeah,
Totally.
the enemies. I love King K. Rool is like my favorite Smash character. He's
Mm.
just so big fucking and stupid. I just love him. And he's a huge goon. And all the enemies in this game are just, I mean, some of them are just like snakes and little alligators, but I love those big crocodile dudes, the barrel
Yeah.
chested, big bellied boys. They geek me out, dude. I think that
They're
shit's
fun.
funny.
All the enemies do have like a little bit of personality, which is fun. And that's another thing that I think brings it away, back to your question about Mario. Like Mario, you got your Goombas and stuff, and you're like all the, but then none of them seem silly. Whereas like these guys like
Dog,
living in their world being
you
goofy.
telling me the mushroom with little feet walking underneath them aren't
Okay.
silly?
No, clearly it is silly, but like these are more cartoon. I don't know how to explain it real well, but these are like more cartoonish.
More
Like
cartoony than video
they got
gamey,
their
whatever
chests
the fuck
barreled
that
out and
means.
shit. They're moving
Yeah,
around, they're wiggling. Like
yeah,
it's silly.
I give you that. Yeah. It should also be mentioned that the bosses, it's kind of funny how they're small, but also huge. Like when it's like a huge thing that pops on and off the screen for like a lot of them, which I thought was kind of funny.
Right. They're not, I didn't like, what do you think about the bosses, dude?
Maybe that was just the bird. I appreciated that they weren't insanely hard. This
Right.
is
I
going
didn't
to
think
be,
they were that hard,
yeah, for,
which
compared
I
to
didn't
everything
mind.
else, you're always in like a banana cave, like a banana stash, which is just kind of funny.
Cake Rule's kind of hard. The final boss.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he's insane. But that big bird is just kind of goofy. There's that one that's like a toxic barrel type of shit where it's just
Mhm.
like,
That one, I was a little
oh,
confused because I didn't know if I was supposed to hit the barrel or not. You try to,
yeah, I
yeah,
died a few
just
times
avoid it.
jumping at the barrel.
Right.
So, but they're all pretty cool. I don't know.
Either.
Yeah, I was relieved they weren't like super hard, honestly. I just kind of liked that they were goofy.
Right.
It's almost like a little reward for getting through like a fun little challenge.
Honestly. Yeah. No, I think
Still
that,
pretty hard though.
I mean, if you look at it changed a bit for Super Mario World and stuff, some of the bosses there, but like the original Mario, dude, like you just run and you just jump over Bowser and the bridge.
For its time, it definitely feels more creative for the bosses. I can't believe we haven't mentioned this, but it's like one hit kills you, and like unless you have a DK or like Diddy Kong or DK as your companion at the moment, and then it's just two hits. Which every time you start anew on the bosses, they have both of them, so you always have two hits for the bosses, which I thought was
All
nice.
right, that's cool. The barrels, like the different barrels that you run into. So there's the checkpoint barrel, there's the kegs, like the metal kegs that you can pick up and throw and actually ride, which is kind of cool. I don't know if you tried
Never
that
found
one.
that out. Yeah,
Yeah, so you can like kind of ride and roll on the barrel there. There's
what a
other
fun
barrels that
little
you just throw.
detail that you'd barely ever use, but they are just kind of on one, making a cool game.
Right.
There's
Dude.
a few of the enemies you can only kill with the barrel at the end too. So
Mhm.
some of the platforming. How have we not talked about the carts?
Oh yeah, so the card. I like the card levels. We
Those are some of
mentioned,
the most fun levels, dude.
yeah, they were those are super fun. So it's like the mine cart levels.
Yeah.
There's two of them. So like there's the
I
one
don't think
levels that
Mario
where
has
they
an
changed to.
equivalent on the Rails experience, do they?
No, not that I can think of. Not at least not in the early Mario's. It might
And I
not.
feel like Nintendo bit the whole minecart thing like 100 times over with all their future games. So it's kind of funny that this is where it started, to the best of my knowledge.
Yeah, so it's basically a roller coaster where the rails are broken at certain points. You got to time those jumps just perfectly. It's
At
a
this
cool
game,
ride, man.
at this game, it's like a trope in games to have this type of cool, like literal on the rails section. So like I wonder if this is the first of it. I would bet, but I can't be certain. But
I enjoy those, and I also enjoy. I was just talking about the barrels. So you got the barrels that actually shoot you out. Like those are, I
yeah,
think those are pretty fun, man. That
that's
seems
pretty iconic Donkey Kong.
totally. So you jump in the
Yeah.
barrels, and some of them will like spin around, and then you have to
Yeah.
hit the angle. Other ones will move up and down, so you got to line up the shot. Pretty
Yeah,
cool,
there's the auto ones. So sometimes you fire into an auto one. So you got to see.
right,
Rewind is nice for this, but you got to
dude?
see where you're going.
I can't remember what that level, and all the levels have great names. They're all giving great names, so it's kind of cool. Like I don't know how much
Yeah.
you paid attention to those, but as you're running through, they're all kind of fun. And I can't remember which level it was, but the one that you were just describing, where it's just a huge section of shooting through the barrels. If you do that quickly and you do that without any mistakes, so I mentioned the red balloons that give you one ups. There's blue ones that give you a handful. I can't remember the number, but there's certain things just like that in this game that rewards you for perfect platforming. So a blue balloon will show up because of the time that you did it or something, because it's like a timed event type of
Lord knows I never saw that shit.
thing. So it's like that kind of stuff, man. And that's the kind of stuff that you learn. And when you get good at that stuff, it
Yeah.
makes the game easier in a sense because you're getting more lives, but it's I don't know. It's still tough, man, but it's a little rewards you get, which is kind of cool.
So water levels are generally the scourge of video games, and it's like they have to have them, but no one's really liking them.
Mm-hmm.
I liked the water levels in this game.
They're fun. There's the one of the latter ones a little tough when those squids start to get kind of fast, but they are good.
Sure.
Looking forward to them.
Yeah,
And
like
you gotta admit, dude, riding that swordfish, pretty dope.
dude, killer. Mario games, I hate water levels. Zelda games, the water temples are always notoriously annoying as fuck.
Yeah,
Like underwater in games isn't always like what was that?
My personal take on the Zelda water levels, like I don't mind them. I don't know why they get so much hate, but that's just me.
Whatever. Cool indie bands. But no, I mean, yeah, I guess I agree to some degree. But Mario levels, I always hated Mario water levels. So like to have a game where you not only didn't mind the water level, but you actually look forward to them because of the slap music, the cool fish riding, and like I felt like the platforming was like pretty smooth in the water. I don't know. That's not something you usually say. Yeah,
it's good. The swimming works pretty nice, and they don't time you on the amount of oxygen you have, which I appreciate. I
that's
know
a good point.
the same, but this game we mentioned earlier in 1994, so that's like in the heat of Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo console wars, right?
Sure.
So this game dropped around the same time Sonic did. So both of these games are really pushing the envelope on what graphics could be doing for those 16-bit systems, which is interesting. And I bring this up, one, to make that parallel, but two, water levels in Sonic can suck on my balls.
Yeah, that might be the birthplace of my childhood anxiety, dude. I was like, ah. There's not a bubble around here.
But I'm with you 100%, man. The water levels are one, that aquatic ambiance. Like, I don't know, man. If anytime I can get that groove going again, like throw me back in the water.
A special fuck you to these lights on, lights off. There's at least two levels that employ some function of you can't see much, and like that is like I understand why you do that in a platforming game, but just don't.
Yeah, those ones are tough. Those ones are tough for sure.
This isn't a fun challenge, and what I'm looking at is the coolest part of your game, and I don't want to be looking at darkness.
Another fun fact I ran into, we mentioned earlier, you collect bananas throughout, like you collect coins in Mario. Got a guess on how many bananas are on your hoard?
6,900.
12,000.
Oh.
12,000 bananas in this thing. That's a lot of bananas to steal from DK. I understand why he was angry at King K.
You have to retaliate. Yeah. You can't let that one slide, as the kids would say. Where do you go from there?
Right. The hidden warp barrels. So I was mentioning earlier, there's like all these different barrels that do different things. And it's funny because there's certain things, like even the Kong icons that you have to catch. Like some of them, dude, you have to do some crazy stuff to catch some of those. So I just skip them. Obviously, it makes more sense if you're trying to collect more lives to get through the game to hit them. But there's other like fun little things. We mentioned all the secret little doors and stuff that you can find. But there's also warp barrels in a handful of the levels that are hidden, that if you jump in, basically to shoot you to the end. So it's like little fun deals like that throughout this game.
There's just so much. We should probably talk about King K. Rool, star of the show in any show that he's in. The final boss battle, you can only hit him when he throws off his crown, which is a great smash move. I love that move. And hilariously, like you beat him and you're like, that wasn't too hard, but you're like, pretty grueling, pretty fair. And then the credits play, but it's kind of like some weird credits.
With K. King K cruel credits.
Yeah.
They're like red, and it looks a little off, but it's like rolling the credits. It says credits with the K.
You're kind of relieved because it's definitely not the day that you're shooting the podcast. And then you put down your controller, you attend to the babies in front of you who need need attention, and all of a sudden you're dying and you're like,
Yep,
excuse me. So
dude.
you hit the rewind and he sneak attacks you and it's back in. And
I haven't been
I
juked.
wouldn't
I
say
haven't been juked that hard since Hades. When Dad wakes up again, I was so happy when I beat Hades for the first time. And sorry if I blew that for anybody who hasn't played Hades yet, but there's two
spoiler alert.
phases, and there's two
Yeah.
phases to fucking King K. Cruel too. Oh man, it got me. I was like, oh shit, we're back,
Yeah.
and
I
he's
wonder
tougher,
how
dude. He's
common
tougher on
that
the way
was.
back.
It's
You
way
gotta
tougher.
like,
That bouncing ball attack was super annoying.
dude, I can in that particular sequence, you go through and something we didn't really tell. We talked about like the graphics, but you hit everything. You've got your snow levels that make you slide. You got your caves, which we kind of touched on a little bit, where the mine carts are. You've got your jungle. Like you cover some good ground throughout whatever Donkey Kong's little island's called. Uh,
Right.
but then you hit the iconic, King K. Rool's pirate ship, which was also interesting too. I thought there would be more of a lead up to that. Not to say
Nope.
that, yeah, not to say that those levels weren't enough lead up, but I just I assumed that there would be more like, I don't know, like you've got your like Bowser's Castle whole area in
Pomp and
Mario
circumstance,
World.
what you're looking for here. Yeah.
Yeah, there was none. It was just like, boom,
Yeah.
let's go. I kind of
Let's
like that though, especially after what the all the level bosses kind of easy. So like to get thrown in there, you're like, oh shit, I guess we're going. Let's go. That'd
They should make a King K. Rool pirate game.
be great.
I'd play it. Kind of bite that whole like Assassin's Creed ship combat thing, but it's just like I'm just King K. Rool fucking shit up. I'd play it.
He's got that classic platformer. Like if you learn his tells, he's not terribly hard. And jumping over him, especially see, I use DK because he's a bit stronger, so he's easier to jump over with Diddy. But I did find that jumping over him and tying it not too hard. But that second phase, you're better off running under him, and I had a lot harder of a time trying to time that shit.
It was the balls, the cannonballs that really like you
Those are
have to
tough too.
really
Those drop from
you
the ceiling, yeah.
yeah, you have to not only like the ball hits the ground and then you can't run like it when it and then it rolls off the screen. So
Gives
that
like a
second,
bounce, yeah.
yeah, that second will like trip you up and then you don't have any time. So I had to groove that. And it's like if I wasn't playing the cheesy rewind way, like that'd be really cool, but intensely frustrating because you'd be doing that battle for a while, timing everything because it's only two hits. Like you don't get any type of boost halfway through or anything. It's like it's your two hits. And I remember that from Tropical Freeze. That's actually when I quit because it's weird to say, but before the podcast, like I didn't play as many games as like homework.
Yeah. Or to finish, like if a game was like
Or to
really tough
finish.
for me to
Yeah.
finish, like I would just shelve it, like I
Yeah,
did with
you
Tropical Freeze.
right. You bounce off or like you
Yep.
get distracted by something else. But I remember there was this boss where I was just dying and dying and dying. But games like Metroid and Hollow Knight and Shovel Knight have all kind of taught me to like persevere through that and just kind
Sure.
of grit my teeth through that. And this game, the whole time, dude, just made me want to play Tropical Freeze. Like I have to kind of beat it
Well,
now.
I don't think Tropical Freeze gets enough credit. Like I don't think enough people maybe have played it or like what, but because I do think that game takes all these awesome elements from Donkey Kong Country, polishes them, and it makes it more of an approachable Donkey Kong game. I
Yeah,
say it
it's
right
like
now, man. Tropical Freeze over Donkey Kong Country. I'm sorry.
it, but it's like that's not even an insult though, because it's like Tropical Freeze is just like an excellent take on an excellent game, just
Right.
modernized for all these ways that make the game so much more accessible. So the music's still amazing, same composer, like you said earlier. The graphics of, although still Nintendo, they're still not pumping out like, Starfield out here when it comes to graphics, but like the whole idea is that like the game is just intensely slick. Like I loved it when I
Right.
was playing it. And then another comparison, they have like a lot of rhythm sections, I feel like, where you get
Mhm.
into this groove and you do this thing. Rayman Legends, you ever heard of the Rayman series? Or you know Rayman?
Yeah, I do. I've never like played
So it's a super underrated platformer because
it.
it wasn't a
Some people
Nintendo
really
property.
love it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's Ubisoft or whatever, and they have different flack, but it's really good. It reminded me of that too. So awesome game, dude. That's if you're looking to play Donkey Kong Country for nostalgia, for sure. If you want just like a nice, modern, cleaner take, like this is definitely Freeze is definitely where you should be headed.
Totally. And also, we had a bit of a conversation. We talked about it here a bit, and we've talked about it on our Super Mario World pod. But rewind, dude, it makes games like this approachable. Like, oh, dude, it was so funny. I was playing this game, and my wife Anna was watching me for a little bit, and I was on one of the bosses, and I was cheesing the rewind a little bit, and she's like, "What's the point? Aren't you just cheating right now?" And I was like, "Kinda."
You're like, listen,
Yeah,
Luke's
I
gonna
was like, I gotta
grill
beat
me
this
if I don't
game.
fake beat this game.
Oh man. But that's just it, man. Like I think that, it's one of those games. So as far as a recommendation go, like I don't think at this pod yet there's really been a game that I wouldn't be like,
Right.
they're all, we pick games that are worth playing.
Even though we made fun of Loop Hero, it was still a good time for what it is.
Dude, totally. In this game, it's just one of those games. It's a game of its time. I think you said it perfectly that if you're looking for something a little bit more polished and you don't want to be, like play Tropical Freeze, I think that captures the essence of Donkey Kong Country and elevates it. I think Donkey Kong Country, though, for a timepiece, excellent fucking platformer. It really pushed the envelope on graphics of the 16-bit era, like the music, like it's iconic. It's an iconic game.
Yeah.
If you're into gaming history, absolutely play it. If you don't want to be pulling your hair out on, platforming, play it on NSO. Play it with some rewind.
And if you weren't born in the 80s, like, yeah, it's pretty decent to go back to this game.
Yes, sir. Well, shit, man. You want to take a little break? Come back with our unsanctioned sponsor. This month's pod is unofficially brought to you in part by Pumpkin Spice.
Get the fuck.
Dude,
Did
it's
my wife
September.
pay you to put this in here?
It's September. You've had some pumpkin spice in your system, dude. How have you not?
I haven't. I mean, I've
What?
sipped my
Not even
wife's cold foam
See,
from
there we go.
Starbucks, but I protested it because it was like the first day of pseudo fall. It was still like hot out, so I got this weird apple crisp type latte shit, and she was like apple coffee. I'm like, motherfucker, you drinking pumpkin pop like coffee right now? What's the difference? Like, how are you gonna look down upon it?
Furthermore,
Bro, they got that shit. They got mac and cheese flavor on pumpkin spice. This has gotten out of control. I can't believe you're condoning this.
I'm taking no money from Pumpkin Spice because they're not actually
Al has
money.
a pumpkin spice beer in his fridge right now, dude.
Dude, I kind of wish I did. I would do pumpkin beer. I fuck with some pumpkin beer, and that's just it, dude. Pumpkin flavor is the official, like, granted. So we're in the Midwest, we're in Minnesota, and it was hot. It was fucking hot when Starbucks unleashed their pumpkin spice on the world. It was like 90 degrees. Dude,
Right.
was I in line to get one? Yeah. Was that my choice? Well, I mean, yeah, I was like, I wasn't like anti doing it. I went. It was my wife who really wanted to get it. But you know what? I was like, I will condone
This
this
month brought to
behavior.
you by compromise and choosing your battles and learning to enjoy yourself in these moments of
Indeed.
capitalism.
So my wife has had multiple pumpkin spice drinks since Starbucks unleashed their pumpkin spice on the world for this season.
My wife's had it at least 3 times.
Yeah, Anna's at least 5. Dude, but here's the deal. First time I got it. Next time I went with her, I just went back to my cold brew with cream, dude, because do
you get the cold foam though?
Dude, I get cold brew with cream, dude. The cold foam and all that bullshit. I'm like, whatever. Like,
nah, dude, the cold foam's kind of lit. I'm not gonna
dude,
lie.
I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying
there's a pistachio one. I'm pretty sure that one's pretty.
I'm just saying that my order is cold brew with cream. Give me that fucking caffeine straight to the veins. But pumpkin spice. This podcast being brought to you with pumpkin spice. Yes, pumpkin spice, but that is also the official entry into fall, my friend.
It's weird that you have this space background and you're like prophesizing on pumpkin spice. You're like, listen, brother. And there's like a world behind you and stars. This is not a visual product, but just know that it's a strange vibe for me to see Alex being like, I've been to space. And you know what? After some reflection,
you know what they have? Pumpkin spice.
When I can see the world from up there, I just had one feeling.
Dude, the only reason that pumpkin spice out here unofficially bringing this podcast to the people is because I love fall. Fall's the best season, dude. I love it so much. I wish it wasn't so short.
Sweater weather, brother. I wore my Vikings hoodie today. Skull.
Yeah, that's
so there we go.
0-1.
Got it from Casco. I was a little disappointed though. I got the double X. I wanted it to feel like a boyfriend sweater because what's more fall than a boyfriend sweater? You know what I'm saying? And the double X just fits me. So fuck you, Casco.
That's the problem with clothes. There's no true standard in size.
I'm not trust me, I've been out in these streets. I am not a Midwest double X.
I am you, but I'm also 6'6".
Yeah. Did you get that? Yeah, 6'7" next time you ask. All right. Pumpkin spice makes you grow fake inches when you grow older.
Dude, pumpkin spice, pumpkin beers, pumpkin life, but
Pumpkin mac and cheese. Alex eats it all, man.
more
Pumpkin
so
cereal.
fall. I'm more excited about fall, to be
I
honest.
feel that.
All right.
Welcome back. We have achieved a secret room in Donkey Kong. What is your side quest, good sir?
I have two major side quests this month. One,
Mm,
Sea of Stars. Two, Starfield.
stars. This is why you have the space background then.
I do. People don't get to see it, but I'm living
But
space now, dude.
yeah,
I'm living
Al is
space.
in the stars. Although Sea of Stars, I don't think you're ever in space.
No. Well, maybe. I don't know. I haven't beaten that game yet. Okay, so I started Sea of Stars. I
Yeah,
really
this one's a
love
mutual one, so we should start with that.
sure,
Do you
yeah, of
know the name
course.
of the studio?
Dude, I was just reaching for it. It's a cool name. What is it called?
Sabotage
Yeah, it's
Studio.
Sabotage Studios. That's right. And they did the Messenger, dude. And I've never
On this
I haven't
very pod, Alex has pimped it before as a fun
yeah.
time.
And I have not rolled credits on the Messenger. I probably got about maybe 3/4 of the way through, and because it wasn't a pot of the month, I shelved it and moved on to something else. But we might have to play that game because it is great.
I
And
almost hijacked this pod to become the Sea of Stars pod, but
dude,
you got distracted by Starfield, so that wasn't really possible.
because of my love for Sabotage's The Messenger, I heard about Sea of Stars, and then I got super stoked. One, I was just stoked that it was coming out because I love the idea of like this homage to turn-based, like a turn-based RPG that has some like modern flair to it or whatever. That just like that tickled my. I was like, ooh, that sounds like something I might like. And then it was coming to Game Pass, which I have. So I was like, dang, I'm going to be able to play this game. Like, I won't even have to buy it off the bat. I might buy this game physical because it's dope.
Game Pass was so dry for my ass all summer when I could have been
Yeah.
gaming with children, taking naps. And now that I'm back at work and I have an hour and a half, maybe a video game and no time, they're like, how about all the coolest shit fucking ever, dog? I'm like, fuck you. So upset.
Totally. A lot of good games, man. They just dropped. I haven't played it. I played it, I have it on the Switch, but Grizz is on there now. Grizz.
Yeah.
That's a great one. Like,
Well, we gotta keep focus. I gotta bring you back on the rails. This is my fault, but Sea of Stars is sick, and
it is dope.
Sabotage Studios. It's so video gamey. I love this so much that like they come out with this super crunchy like throwback that throws back both 8-bit and 16-bit eras and marries them in this super cool gameplay. I haven't even played it. I just know how fire it is. I bought it
Yeah.
recently because Sea of Stars is so cool, and I want to support the studio. But it's like the money they made off of making this super killer game, they put in to make an even bigger scale game that's
Totally.
still another homage to a different, although adjacent era. But it's just like this. They're Canadian. Where's this developed? Like Sabotage, but regardless, like this classic JRPG format, Chrono Trigger,
Yep.
as always brought up. So Paper Mario, which is a huge soft spot for me, having those little like inputs to for the turn-based combat to be a little sexier.
Yep.
This game is so fucking cool.
It's
so you can
dope,
go
dude.
back. You can go back to talking about it. Sorry, I just had to say all that.
Oh no, that's fine. I mean,
Yeah.
so the only thing, so Messenger it's basically an homage.
I am Garl,
Yeah.
warrior cook.
Yeah.
All right. Pirate chef. The dude's my fucking hero. All right, my bad.
Messenger. You mentioned that 8 to 16-bit thing. So basically, that game is like a love letter to your Ninja Gaidens, like that type of game. And then
Right.
it switches over halfway through, jumps to 16-bit, and becomes a Metroidvania. So like for me, that game was my jam, dude. Like I love everything going on with that game. And I also have a very like nostalgic spot in my heart for like some of the Final Fantasy and some of the early like Final Fantasies and shit that like the ones on Nintendo. They're so crunchy, dude. And if you go back and play them, like, yeah, they're fun, but like this isn't elevated to today's standard. Like you bring up the Paper Mario bits, like
Trim the fat. They trim the fat for sure.
dude, 100%. And it's like cheeky. Like I won't throw them super. Yeah, fuck it. Like I was listening to the only critique I heard Jason Schreier, who's like big on the video game beat, was giving Sea of Stars a little bit of shit for its writing. I don't give a fuck, man. I didn't come here for the writing on Sea of Stars, and I think it's cheeky and funny, dude. Like, I don't know. I was like, get out of here with that because
This game is
funny.
so beautiful and cute.
Exactly, dude.
Yeah,
Like I
dude.
have no problems with it. And it's like it's approachable, it's fun. Like I've been watching a lot of people on social media that like, some cozy gamers are getting into it, gamers are getting into it. Like it's a dope game. And I look forward to finishing it, but I've moved dude, Starfield has captured me. So I was super loving Sea of Stars, but then Starfield dropped and I've been living in space, bro.
The ultimate respect to Sea of Stars is that like there's been days where I'm like, I can't do Starfield. I have to play Sea of Stars. Like
Oh,
I've
good for
been
you.
thinking about it more all day. And
Yeah.
also, if I have 1 hour of gaming and it's at 9 o'clock at night,
Yep.
Starfield has been so intense to understand. It's
Fair
so
enough.
dense, dude. So crunchy. It's too much.
It is great though, dude. It's I'm pretty
I think
happy
I'll
with
get there,
it. Totally.
but
I'm about 15, 20 hours in already.
yeah, damn.
Mm.
We're both space scoundrels because apparently we're Han Solo simps. I
Yep.
always thought I was a Luke Skywalker guy because of the name Luke. But as I get older, Luke Skywalker's kind of a weenie, and Han was way cooler always. So
Dude, I saw this meme the other day that juxtaposed Luke and Anakin, and it was like Anakin by age like 24 or whatever. And it was like had a seat on the Jedi Council, like all this other bullshit that he did. And then Luke, it was like kissed his sister.
that's it. So random. But yeah, we're both space scoundrels. I'm an old lady named Patty Duke, and I couldn't be happier about it.
That's awesome. I want
Yeah,
to
I
remake
can't
that.
wait to romance people. Like I'm not a big romance in games type dude, but I as role playing as old lady space scoundrel Patty Duke is lit. Tell us about your character a little bit, or what are your impressions?
So far, man, I think it's really good. My character, I was gonna make it. A lot of these times I try and make somebody that looks like me. I started doing that, and then my wife came downstairs and she's like, "Are you trying to create yourself?" And I panicked and was like, "No." I switched it up for whatever reason. I kind of wish I would have rolled with
Al did this too during Cyberpunk, but it was just on the penis.
it.
Like,
Oh
no.
man, I gave him an average dick. I was like, whatever, average sounds good.
Like, how do you make the tip a weirder color than the rest of it?
Oh, that's clowning.
No,
But
I'm just
yeah, no,
playing. Al has
the
a
character,
wonderful
dude, I
penis, I'm sure.
knew because this game has been, they've been teasing it for a while, and they had that whole like Xbox, whatever you want to call it, like they dedicated a huge showcase just to this game. So I knew a lot of stuff that we were going to be getting into when it first dropped. And the character creation is super cool, dude, but it's a little too tense. I knew it was going to fucking give me an anxiety attack, and it kind of did.
Yeah. They're making pretty clear you can redo it whenever you want.
Yep,
So
I like
I
that
was like,
too.
that's cool.
I think I'll go back
No,
and change some things.
there's just so much going on in the early moments of that game. And I keep reading it everywhere that like somewhere between like some people say 20 hours, somewhere between 5 and 20 is when like I think you finally land the familiarity with everything.
Mm,
And I guess from there, this is supposed to be a game that you're going to play a ton over time. But if you can get past that first leg, which is admittedly a huge leg,
right.
I'm enjoying it, and I love Bethesda games, so like I will give it the time. But it's been a lot.
So are we going to cover this game next month for the pod or not?
It's a great question because I almost feel like we might not be servicing it correctly because we might not be getting through that huge of a chunk in that time with how big this game might be.
I might be there.
I
but
hope you are. I hope you
but
are.
I just want to know. I'm trying to get a feel for how much hot takes I should give this game. So like because we're gonna do a full episode and I'll have more to say. But I guess I'll just get early reactions. I'll give you one.
Yeah.
I think the game's dope. I think like I think beyond the character creation, like the immersion that they have going on and everything is cool. But I also have some qualms with that, and that it is truly a lot of fucking fast travel going on here.
Yeah,
And
that's kind of bummed me out so far. It's a
I've
little
been
clunky.
playing primarily on the Series X, and then I also am streaming it via Xbox streaming or whatever they call their little streaming stuff to my Steam Deck. And because I have pretty good, very good internet, like that's a nice situation for me. Although some of the queue times to get that going, like I have to wait 15 minutes, dude. That's unprecedented. I've never had Xbox like streaming like have put me in queue that long. There's that many
Yeah.
people playing this
I
game.
don't stream much, but yeah, I've seen that on the internets.
Mm-hmm. And but that's cool, man. I've seen some stuff out there about and that brings me back to something I want to say about Sea of Stars. I don't know what we're calling Twitter anymore, X or whatever it is. But
For now.
I saw a post out there on Sea of Stars that they way smashed their sales. They had forecasted that they were going to get for this game in the course of a year, and they blew them out like 6-7 times the amount that they thought they would sell in the year. They sold in the first month. So I'm super happy for Sabotage Studios. That's awesome. So similarly for this game, I was saying with those queue lines, like, dude, they put something out and there was like a 1.5 million people playing all at the same time, like on like the first or second day of release. That's wild.
Yeah, Starfield, Xbox had a lot of pressure, and I feel like they put their hands in this one a little bit more. Bethesda's obviously respectable, but also some of that respect comes from 10 years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been tons of controversy about everything else they've released since, about quality and
Sure.
like all these types of things, right? Like incomplete games that they come back to over time. So it was very relieving to see Starfield come out in a it's got glitches. Most games do, and it can get dogged for it, but generally it's a very, especially for them, it's been a very clean game.
Totally. And you know what? Some of those glitch, like some of that glitch stuff, I'm like, I don't know, throw them a bone. That's a little bit of that Bethesda charm.
Right. Right.
But
All right.
dude, honestly, it's the fast travel that bugs me about it the most. I like it in a sense because it allows me to progress whatever thing I'm like mission I'm working on. Cause you can honestly go to your mission tree or your mission like list and then go to whatever one you want to, press X, and it will shoot you right to where you need to be. A part of me
Yeah,
really likes that. A part
it's
of
a
me is
little
also,
aggressive. Yeah.
yeah. And then like, and it's clunky, man. Like you start to learn the different like your inventory management and all the different screens. Like you start to learn it. This game is definitely made for a controller. Like I think that I've talked to some folks that are playing on PC. I think it's a little bit harder to manage. You deal with it, you learn it. I don't really mind that because I've been playing with the controller, so I think they figured it out. It bugs me that I can't use my bumpers to switch to my guns, but you can have like so many. Um,
Yeah.
so it's interesting. Like there's some things that I'm getting used to and liking more, but it's truly the travel. And like if you're gonna juxtapose this game with something like Skyrim, right? Which makes sense because that's Bethesda's other like fucking,
Yeah.
that's their big thing. Skyrim, like, if you're in that world, it's kind of fun to ride your horse to the next place. Like you can fast travel and stuff once you've been places and whatnot. Whereas this, like, dude, it's kind of the shortcomings of space. Like in theory, sure, you can spend
Yeah.
4 years flying or however long it takes to get to the next planet. But who's going to do that? Like that's ridiculous. And there's nothing going on out in space. So like,
It's so big it does not encourage exploration.
exactly. So it's
That's a
like
big
it's
deal.
almost I'm figuring that out. Like I'm not deep enough into the game where I know if that's a problem or not, but it I don't want to say it feels sparse, but it's space and by definition it is
Yeah.
like a little lonely sometimes.
I've seen some shit. Um, I too have. So for my side quests, there are some deep parallels between those two. I'm a bit further in Sea of Stars, and I only love it more. So you'll have to get back to that one.
Right on.
Starfield, I just need me a nice sesh to really get deep. I'm in the stage where I'm like, do I pick up cups? Like I
Sure.
know not to pick up cups, but like
You'll
there's
figure it
so
out.
many named items in this game.
Inventory
Like
management kind of whack in this, to be honest. Like
well,
everything gets really heavy. Oh, one thing that's really dope though that I think is like cool. That's kind of along that vein is your skill tree. I've never seen this before in a game. It might not be new. Who knows? I've just never seen it. But instead of like when you're playing Spider-Man, you got your skill tree and you unlock things and you get your power ups or whatever. In this, you unlock things in the same way, but it also gives you a task list. So like for instance, if you're upping your weightlifting section or whatever, which allows you to carry more items, not only do you unlock it, but you can't go to the next part of the skill tree until you've sprinted for X amount of like time.
yeah.
And
I
it's
think
like,
that's cool because it encourages different play,
right.
but
And I
it's
think
also weird that key functions are locked behind unlocking it on the skills. Like
yeah,
that's a little strange. Like you
it's a little
can't
tricky.
persuade until you unlock the persuade. So that's a little
Sure.
strange. Yeah.
But I do think it's cool in a sense, in like a role playing factor, like the fact that you like have to pickpocket a certain amount of people before you can move on to the next part. It like actually makes you an expert pickpocketer. Like I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean Skyrim's similar where if you do the action it boosts your skill, but it's just
Sure.
kind of nice to see it. Like I like the persuade stuff in games and their persuade system is really cool. But it sounds like we're doing this pod next week, so we're going to talk about my other games,
Yeah,
which is I'll be brief on this one. Assassin's Creed, historical murder
you could.
simulator. Dude, no.
Okay.
because I was vibing with this game so hard, and then it just went ahead and did its Ubisoft thing. Especially modern Assassin's Creed is really bad for this,
Hmm.
where they just like lock you out of some stuff where it does not matter your skill. Like it's all about are you at a certain level, and like one or two levels makes just a massive difference. And it's like,
Right.
in a video game where they're like, this is a point of no return. Make sure you've saved and you're ready for this shit. And I was like, bet. And then I did what felt like 5 hours of story.
Oh, weird.
And it was definitely not that long, but it was kind of long. And I picked this game because I heard it was the smallest
Yeah.
and the most like curated and contained. And I did all this stuff. I thought I was finishing the game. It definitely gave me all the reason to feel that way. And then all of a sudden they're like, all right, go level up like 2, 3 levels and you can continue the story. And I was like, what the fuck? And it's like it's never been done that bad within the same game or series, but like it wasn't the first time that like I totally should have just been able to like move on, but I couldn't. And I'm like, let's normalize tackling these games at our own fucking pace. So it went from such a massive recommend because like ancient Egypt is super cool. Like as I did with my grad school project, like dude, I'm just like getting curious and learning things just because I'm bouncing through the game. Like I would not have registered how much like yes, you could have told me the Greeks invaded Egypt and did all this stuff, but like when you're in Egypt and you see what feels to you like this mix of like you like Greek cities, like it totally like you're like, oh my God. And you see all these names like Memphis, and you're like, oh, that's not like that's from Egypt, right?
Right.
And it's got this whole different vibe than the other cities. And it's like, and then the game's like, do a bunch of fucking bitch work for 2, 3 hours and then come back to the story that you're deeply invested in. And then the Assassin's Creed games just need to drop the whole fucking whatever abstergo. I don't know any
Oh,
of
yeah.
that fucking present day shit where they just yank you from the story and the gameplay to like walk around and have some shit dialogue. Rant corner. All right. So on one hand, that game's fucking the shit. On the other hand, fucking Ubisoft, am I right? Gosh. And then to close us out, my guy, Slay the Spire.
Oh, you back on it?
Dude, never stopped.
I knew you were. I see. I see your.
You see me on there, dude. There's no better. I don't know if I'm like willing to put it in like my greatest games of all time things, but like it's not in Civ territory yet, but like it's creeping towards like Civ adjacent. Like Civ's got the house on the hill, but like Slay the Spire is like in the neighborhood. Like they go to this, they send their kids to the same school. You know what I mean? Like they're within the
You gotta
voting
be. You gotta
boundaries.
be 250, 300 hours now, something like that.
It's just over two. It's probably like the 220s if I'm gonna
You.
be a little bit less. Yeah. But like also, I don't know if it's because it's a roguelike, but it has a really good Reddit community.
Mm.
And I don't mean good, like I don't judge the overall behavior, but like just good content. Just good
Right on.
content for people, interesting things for me to engage with. And like I follow a decent amount of different subs, and like I'd say Slay the Spire is like one of the ones I do the most. So I'm doing Ascensions now for the 5 listeners that are big into Slay. It's not about beating the heart. It's about beating the boss to unlock the next Ascension level. And this is nitty gritty as fuck. You just gonna have to live with it. And it's tight. Yeah. The game's dope. Buy that game. All right. You want to send us off proper?
Yeah. Well, thanks everybody for another episode coming in for another Low5 Gaming episode. Holler at us in the Discord. Go to www.low5gaming.com. You can get a hold of us there. And this is independent pod, which means we fucking produce and put this shit together by ourselves. But you can help us if you like. You can go to our website and throw some ducats to help with all the costs. It'd be appreciated.
Yeah.
But you know what?
You could also Alex makes $1 million, he'll do the DK rap.
Ooh, deal.
Wearing just
$1 million
DK
rap naked in my backyard.
He'll do just a necktie
with
like
the
Donkey
necktie.
Kong. A big gaudy necktie.
I dig it.
Dude, Donald Trump makes Donkey Kong's neckties. They're so fucking big.
Till next time.
Did you see that joke coming? Bet not.
when she needs to be.
She can go through the air and climb up trees.
If you choose her, you'll not choose wrong.
With a skip and a hop,
She's one cool ball.
he has no style, he has no grace.
This punk has a funny face
He can handstand when he needs to.
and stretch his arms out just for you.
Inflate himself just like a balloon.
This crazy